people. And the next one we are going to see the objective of fiscal policy. What are the objectives of fiscal policy? They have given 7 objectives. The first one is full employment. The first objective of fiscal policy is full employment. It is a common objective, isn't it? Almost all the country we are experiencing the unemployment problem. Like countries like India, we are facing a lot. Already we have studied, isn't it? So the macroeconomic theories, they mostly concentrate. The classical theory, they thought there will be a full employment or underemployment, always full employment. But actually there is no full employment, isn't it? The maximum underemployment or unemployment is prevailing in the country. But the main objective of the fiscal policy is full employment, not only in the developed country and also in the developing countries. So, expecting the full employment both developed and developing countries. Public expenditure on social overheads help to create the employment opportunities, isn't it? As I said, if the public expenditure increases, we will get employment opportunities, I told. So, by increasing the public expenditure, there will be an increase in the employment. And also, public expenditure on rural employment programs. 100 days employment programs. Now we are hearing, isn't it? 100 நாள் வேலைவாய்ப்பு திட்டம். Why they have given for the rural areas? To make them employed, isn't it? To make them employed. They are giving the 100 days employment programs. In the same way, there are so many employment programs. Jawahar Rojana Thittam. So many employment programs are there in India to make the people in the rural area be employed. And one of the program is Mahatma Gandhi National Employment Guaranteed Scheme. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guaranteed Scheme. That is MGNERGS. Be careful girls, you should know what is MGNREGS. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guaranteed Scheme. So these are the programs. These programs has been introduced to make the people in the rural area employed. So there are so many employment programs are introduced to aim at the employment generation. And the second one is price stability. Price stability. What do you mean by this? Why do we need the price stability? If there is an imbalance between the aggregate demand and aggregate supply. If there is an imbalance in the aggregate demand and aggregate supply, there should be a imbalance in the price also. And inflation is due to excess demand for goods. When do the inflation comes? If the price rise, there will be a inflation. That we have already studied, isn't it? What do you mean by inflation? A rise in price, isn't it? Steady rise in price is called inflation. When do the price rise? If the demand increases, the price rise. So, the inflation is due to the demand in increase. And if the excess demand is caused by the government expenditure, in excess real output, the most effective measure is cut down the public expenditure. So how do the demand increases? if there is more government expenditure is there, if all the people gets employed, there will be a demand for the product. Aggregate demand will be increased, which leads to the increase in the price. At that time, the government has to cut down its expenditure. It has to give more income. And taxation of income is the best measure if excess demand is due to private spending. And taxation reduces the disposable income, isn't it? We already studied. If there is more tax, there will be less taxable disposable income. So, to fight against the depression, the government needs to increase the spending and reduce taxation. So, how they are using the taxation and the cutting the taxation? How they are to maintain the price stability, isn't it? Otherwise, the price will go up, and it leads to inflation. It affects the nation. So, price stability is very, very important. To do the price stability, they have to control the inflation, as well as they have to sometimes to as per the economic situation, either if it is inflation or deflation, boom period or depression period, based on the period, based on the phases of the trade cycle, the government has to impose taxes. And third one is economic growth. Third one is economic growth. What do you mean by this? Why we are using this fiscal policies? Why we have monetary policy, fiscal policy in economics? Why do we need? I already told you, both has to be used in the nation to take the economic in the progress way, to move the economic forward. So, these policies are used to increase the productive capacity of the economic. Tax is used to be an instrument for encouraging investment. How can the tax increase the encourage the investment? If you are paying tax, you won't enjoy. Instead, if you want to save, for example, I already told you, we have a tax base, isn't it? Based on our income, we have tax bases. And while you are paying the income tax, you can get relaxation for some items I told. LIC, if you paid LIC, if you are paying LIC, housing loan, if you are paying personal loans, that amount will be taken into account. That amount, the amount which you are paying for these loans or LICs and other things will be deducted from your income. Only then they will assess the tax rate, income tax rate. So, if you want to escape from the tax, automatically you started saving. The saving will become an investment. So, that increase in the tax brings increase in the investment. And also, tax holidays. Tax rebate, discount. Rebate means discount. Encourage the people, those who are doing business, isn't it? If they want to give economic growth, if they want to make the production high, the government can give tax relaxation, tax discount, so that they can produce more goods. And then sometimes public sector investment ought to be increased to fill the gap left by the public investment, private investment, isn't it? Sometimes if there is no private or not willing to participate in the investment for the capital formation, for investing, the government has to do the investment. So, when the resource mobilization through tax measures is inadequate, the government resorts to borrowing both from internal and external sources to finance the growth projects. Sometimes, if there is the amount which is collected through tax, that also we studied, girls. If the expected tax is not up to the mark or up to the level they expected, what the government has to do? The government has to borrow from others, isn't it? That also we study internal sources and external sources. So, sometimes if the private is not willing to do the investment, the government has to do the investment. For the government investment, it needs money. Where did it get its money? So, either it has to sell the bond. If the people are not willing to buy bonds or securities, the government has to borrow from the public, from the internal sources or external sources to bring back the economy or to do the production activities, which makes the economic into a growth process. So, if the tax revenue is deficit, tax revenue is less, it has to borrow. The government has to borrow from internal or external sources. That is economic growth. Why the government is borrowing and investing? To make the economy up, to bring the economy up. So for the economic growth, the government has to borrow. And the fourth one, equitable distribution. Equitable distribution. While we are studying the tax, I told progressive tax. What do you mean by progressive tax? Progressive tax curve may be tax rate, tax base. This is progressive tax curve. If the tax base increases, the tax rate also increases. So, if there is a progressive tax, it avoids the gap between the rich and poor, isn't it? One who is earning more, he has to pay more tax. One who is earning less, no need to pay tax. So, it will fill the gap between the rich and poor. There should be equality among the people. And also, progressive rates in public expenditure through welfare schemes, free education, noon meal and other things will make the people, standard of living of the people increase, isn't it? Not only taxation, by progressive tax it can control the rich people, but for the poor people it has to offer midday meals, free education, free bus facilities. Only then the standard of the living of the people will come up. So, fiscal policy will give equitable distribution. And the next one is exchange stability. Here the exchange means foreign exchange, isn't it? So, fluctuations in international trade cause movements in the exchange rate. That we have studied, isn't it? What do you mean by exchange rate? Exchange of one currencies into another country's currency. The value of exchange of one country's currency into another country's currency is called exchange rate. If there is a fluctuation in the international trade, there will be a fluctuation in the exchange rate also. They cannot fix a rate. If they give tax concession and subsidies, what would happen? Tax concession, no need to pay the tax. Customs duty or excise duty can be reduced. Export will be increased. If you are doing more exports, You won't, no need to pay tax much. Sorry girls. So, tax concession and a relaxation in the customs duty will encourage the exports. At the same time, imposing tax and duties on harmful products or which are not good for the people. Harmful products like cigarettes, liquor and other things will discourage the imports, isn't it? Then the imports will be decrease. So, the reduction in the import duty on import raw material and the machinery enables reduction in cost and make the exports competitive. So, if they import machineries and other things, raw material and other things, and make the exports competitive, they will make the exports a competitive one. And the capital, if there is more export, we will get the foreign exchange. If we are importing more, we will give the foreign exchange. So, to maintain the stability, the government, the fiscal policy, the government has to check whether we are exporting more. By giving the tax concession and other things, they can increase the export. And the next one is capital formation. Capital is very important for all the countries, isn't it? Without capital, the productive works cannot be done. So the capital is very, very important for all the, it is an essential one to do the production. So, tax relief, tax concession will increase disposable income, isn't it? If we have to pay only less amount of tax, our disposable income will be more. If the disposable income is more, the savings will be more. Disposable income is consist of consumption and savings, we have studied. And also we have studied all the increased income will not be consumed, a part will be saved. So if the disposable income increased, all the income will not be used for consumption. Some amount will be kept for saving also. If the disposable income increases, saving also increases, thereby increase in the capital formation. So, the tax concession give relief and it will increase the disposable income, thereby increase the saving, which leads to the capital formation. I already told you capital is not a separate one. The saving will become the capital. S is equal to C. And also the government expenditure on infrastructure, building roads, transport facilities, building bridges and other things like power and transport encourages the private investment, isn't it? In those things, if the government need the investment, people will, surely they will do, the private people will do investment because those things will bring them profit. So, the capital will be formed through the public expenditure program and also the taxation. So, that only it is important in fiscal objectives. And the last one is regional balance. Regional balance. So, it incentives for industries in the backward regions, isn't it? Sometimes the fiscal policy give incentives to the backward region, the regions which are very poor in industrial sector. Relaxation by giving incentives, tax relaxation, tax concession. So, by giving the tax concession, relaxation and industries in the backward region, it will correct the imbalances among the region. For example, take our district, Madurai, or else take the Tamil Nadu state, we cannot expect all the regions in the Tamil Nadu are equally adequate, equally have the required raw materials and other things. Equally resourceable. We cannot say that, isn't it? For example, we are in the center of Tamil Nadu. We do not have, we never get rain a lot. Nowadays 2 to 3 days now it's raining, but we cannot expect the rain all throughout the year, isn't it? But at the same time, the areas near Tengasi or Kuchalam, Sengotai, they will get almost all the, more than 6 months they will get rain. So in that area, they can grow crops. But we do not have. So there will be an imbalance. And the area which are nearby Coimbatore will get water. The weather